to organize mass rally in solidarity with our brothers in Palestine. We hope this will be Ahmad al-Jariyah ila Yawm al-Qiyamah. Respected leaders of NGOs, our old friend Tien, long before we recognized the mass rally on Palestine and whatnot, he was the one who initiated the mass rally for reformacy along with other comrades who are now, some of them in the government and some of them still believe in the cause. Thank you, Tien Chua. We are lucky to have both of them today. One of those who inspired the justice and peace movement in Malaysia and also in London and all over the world. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a profound responsibility to welcome all of you this morning to a lecture of critical importance and moral clarity. On behalf of IIS Malaysia, in collaboration with Tuan Ikram Malaysia, I thank you for joining us for this important public discourse entitled Beyond the Headlines, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict demystified, delivered by none other than our beloved brother, Dr. Anas At-Tigriti. We are gathered not merely for an academic exercise, but for something far more vital, to reclaim the truth behind one of the most protracted and misrepresented conflicts in the modern world history. In a world where the Palestinian cause is often caricatured, decontextualized, or drowned in sensational headlines, today's lecture seeks to do three essential things. Number one, to provide clarity, grounding us in the facts and history so often distorted. Two, to restore humanity, amplifying the voices of real people whose lives have been shattered, not by myth or ideology, but by daily injustice. And the final one, to inspire action, because neutrality in the face of oppression is complicity. Ladies and gentlemen, Ikhwa wal Akhawat, conflict misunderstood, hence the agency of historical literacy. Let us begin with history. Far too many public conversations begin in the middle of the history, obscuring the legacy of dispossession, occupation, and appetite that underpins the reality in Palestine today. But as we will explore, this is not a clash of equals, nor a perpetual religious feud. It is, as Edward Said rightly coined it, a case of colonial dispossession. From the Balfour Declaration to Nakba, from illegal settlements to the decades-long blockade of Gaza, Dr. Anas At-Tigriti will help us to understand the structures of power that sustain injustice and how media narratives often serve to shield these structures from scrutiny. Ladies and gentlemen, numbers alone cannot capture the grief of a child digging through rubble for her family, or a father who carries his infant through a checkpoint. The recent genocidal assault on Gaza has not only devastated its people, it has shaken the global conscience. Inaction has become a form of complicity. As Dr. At-Tigriti will show later on, policies of forced displacement and mass killing backed by global powers have pushed the Palestinian cause to a terrifying precipice. Yet, even in tragedy, we must force ourselves to see opportunity and a brighter future for new global alignments, for the rise of youth movements, and for Muslim majority nations to demonstrate more leadership. Malaysia, under the Madani framework, has taken principled stances, but We must do more, not only at the diplomatic level, but through civil society education and grassroots advocacy. A couple of minutes ago, I was talking with Tian, and when we were listening to Dr. Anna's experience on how they managed to mobilize not only the people in London, but the whole UK, the whole Europe. So we were comparing with the petite size of the demonstrations that we have held once in a blue, unfortunately. I was thinking then, we need something more creative to get Malaysians. Maybe some batik sarung demonstration, maybe some Korean demonstration, will attract more people to the cause of Palestine. Malaysia and makan-makan cannot be separated. Our speaker today, ladies and gentlemen, is uniquely qualified to help us to navigate these complexities. Dr. Anna Setikriti is not just a scholar of strategies. He is a bridge between the worlds. As a founder of Cordova Foundation, he has challenged the divisive clash of civilizations, faces with a vision rooted in dialogue and shared humanity. He chaired the historic 2 million march in London against the war in Iraq, has negotiated hostage releases in war zones and advised leaders from the West and the East. His work spans continents, from protest front lines to presidential summits, from crossroads to conflict zones. Today, alhamdulillah, he brings all of that wisdom to bear, not just to inform us, but to mobilize us as Malaysians. In the words of Nelson Mandela, he was quoted saying, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." That's not simply rhetoric. It is a reminder that the measure of our humanity lies in our ability to stand with the oppressed, even when it is inconvenient to do so. Our response defines not just our politics, but the most important thing, our moral compass. May today's lecture sharpen our minds, open our hearts, and move our hands to action. I end with this English pantone. Fig trees bloom on sacred land, where hope and sorrow intertwine. United, the Ummah must stand, for justice flows by God's design. Thank you, and may this gathering be a catalyst for truth and transformation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mazli, for that inspiring reflection. To express our appreciation, we would now like to invite Professor Awaludin to come on stage and present a token of appreciation to our Tuan Rumah, Dr. Mazli. If we can have you on stage again. Okay, big round of applause. Huge thank you from us guests to our Tuan Rumah today here. Okay, thank you once again, Dr. Mazli and Prof. Awaludin. Next, we would like to present a short video montage capturing the essence of our cause and our commitment to the Palestinian struggle. So please sit back and enjoy.
themselves and ruled Palestine for about 4 centuries.
Itu adalah manusia.
Okay, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's an appropriate way to transition to the main event for today. A moment we've all been waiting for. It is my privilege to introduce our speaker, Dr. Anas Atikriti. Born in Baghdad in 1968, but moved to the UK with his family at the age of 2 and has been living there ever since. Dr. Anas holds a master's degree in translation and interpreting from Edinburgh and a PhD in political studies from the University of Westminster, and lectured in translation and interpreting studies at Leeds University and Hereford University. The next part, to be honest, Dr. Mazli has done my job for me, but I'll just like to summarize Dr. Anas' contributions, his life of activism. Dr. Anas played a significant role in UK's anti-war movement, notably chairing the massive February 2003 demonstration against the Iraq War in London, which drew approximately 2 million participants. Also the founder of this and CEO of the Cordoba Foundation, a UK-based think tank established during the height of the so-called War on Terror. The foundation aims to counter the widespread clash of civilizations narrative by bridging the gap of understanding between the Muslim world and the West. He has also served as president of the Muslim Association of Britain and co-founded the British Muslim Initiative. In addition, he also has had, let's say, a side job as a hostage negotiator, having helped secure the release of 20 plus people in conflict zones around the world thus far. So it is my honor to call upon Dr. Anas to stage, and he will be assisted in his talk today by Mr. Tian Chua from Secretariat Solidarity Palestine, who will be acting in the capacity of moderator today. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage our esteemed speakers.
Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very salam perjuangan kepada semua. The Masjid, our host place, being hosted by the Masjid, and our distinguished guest, Dr. Anas. And nowadays, with the information technology, we make our work very easy, so we don't need to start any seminar with a very long-winded biography. So people can search Wikipedia for the glorious background that Dr. Anas has gone through. But I just want to start with this. Dr. Anas, with today's topic, Dr. Anas is not only coming to share with us as an analyst, or even activist, but he himself embodied the whole journey and witnessed the whole process of a colonial, a colonial-dominated world. And he himself, father was a democratic fighter, himself more or less lived as a refugee, a political asylum seekers in London, and then grew up in the Western society, merging the both value of the world and continue to engage the world as activists. So today we are not just hearing from analysts, but we are hearing from someone who lived through their life and in the process of struggling and making sense out of the world that which is shaped by the colonial imperialist projects. I was also that this year is very a privilege. Also, it's a 20 years anniversary of the Cordoba Foundation, which is an important milestone in anti-war movement, in the raising awareness about the whatever oppressions and sufferings of Palestinians and the topic we have beyond headline. To be honest, nowadays I'm not only beyond headline. I try to see headlines, and totally we don't want to hear. Actually, the headlines are all the same. Just the numbers keep changing, and we have the same format. I think the news readers also will have the same format. We're just replacing the name, the place, or at times some names. But this is so headline become meaningless. So we like to. We're very privileged to hear someone who's living through and have first-hand experience to discuss with us the issues beyond the insights, beyond headlines. So, and as I also say, I think many of us here share the same sense of despair. And I don't want to say pessimism, because for me, the reaction to oppression is to resist and to fight. And again, 20 years of journey, we'd like to hear from Dr. Anas. But we are on the bright side. We are also saying this year is also important because it is 50 years of Vietnam victory over a colonial imperialist aggression. 50 years ago, we see our neighbors, which is very direct experience for Southeast Asia. We are going through this. We see that, and eventually you see it was victory. And 30 years ago, Vietnam became part of ASEAN, our family. And again, 70 years ago in this place, in Southeast Asia, we held the Bandung Conference, which gave birth to the non-aligned movement. So all these important anniversaries that we look through history give us a blink of hope to see that if we stay long enough, if we bite the bullets, continue with our strength, if we stand the fight, we'll eventually see victory. So I hope this is a bit of a positive note to start. We would like to invite Dr. Anas to start his sharing, and we will also open for question and answer sessions. I think everyone's eager to hear you, Dr. Anas. The floor is yours. Yeah, what do the... Yeah, I think maybe the first round. Okay, thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Dr. Mazli Malik, my dear friend, Chair, guests, heads of organizations, of campaigns, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be back here in this fantastic establishment, which I first visited many years ago, and had the pleasure of listening to luminaries in intellectual areas, in academic studies, various sciences, various fields of humanities. I had the immense pleasure of working together, the Cordoba Foundation, with IAIS, with the Foreign Ministry here in Malaysia, as well as with the State of Qatar, to initiate one of the most important initiatives of the past 20 years. So to be back here today is indeed a great pleasure, and I thank IAIS and everyone here and also the privilege to talk about something as momentous, as significant, as important as the one that we are here to discuss. To talk about Palestine, my dear brothers and sisters, is not something that comes easily. We must recognize the burden that we as a generation carry. And today, in the next few minutes, I will talk about a number of elements that we are all concerned with, but you will note that the most crucial elements I'm not going to touch on too extensively. Despite the fact that I am here to talk about Palestine, I'm not going to delve too much into the situation in Palestine. And there's a reason for this. And the reason is that whilst we see the devastation in Gaza, and we can talk about the numbers of victims, we can talk about the numbers of children killed, we can talk about the numbers of hospitals demolished, we can talk about the schools, the youth centers, we can talk about all of these things. And you will know more than I do regarding the figures, the victims, the utter catastrophe that has hit people who do not deserve to be subject to what they have been for the past year and a half. Despite all of that, I today stand before you and claim that as a generation, we, you, everyone else around the world are the true victims of the crime that has been unfolding every single day for the past year and a half. We are the true victims, my dear brothers and sisters. When families go to sleep and never wake up, we call them victims. When people who are with their loved ones having a meal of very simple ingredients and then attacked by missiles and shrapnel and blown up to bits, we call them victims. When children are killed not because they were carrying weapons, not because they were wielding guns, but because they were sleeping. Imagine this, children sleeping, killed in their tens of thousands. We call them victims. But flip the perspective and look at where you stand, where I stand, where the world stands, observing this and yet failing to act, and now tell me who the real victims are. What is at stake, my dear brothers and sisters, is the essence of humanity. We're not talking about an issue of political intricacy. We're not talking about an issue that requires much discussion regarding the depth of philosophy or social issues. We're talking about the very essence of humanity. About how the world today, despite the incredible advancements being achieved on every single level, the world now is, as we are told, in a transformative moment, about to enter the era of AI, where everything is created, everything in our minds is now being seen, almost touched. Yet, despite all this incredible innovation, advancement, creativity, such a heinous, grotesque crime is allowed to happen time and time and time again, whilst we watch by and are capable of doing nothing. We, my brothers and sisters, are the real victims of what is happening, and not because we have been wounded, not because we have been killed, not because we have been prevented from a sip of water, not because we have been prevented from a bite that will sustain us till the next day. It's because we have been witness to a heinous, grotesque, brutal crime, yet have been absolutely unable to provide any level of real assistance and help. And therefore, we need to look outside of Gaza to understand where the real crime is taking place. And I'd like to start off by mentioning something that has happened over the course of the past 24 to 48 hours in my country, in the United Kingdom. For those of you who haven't been following, we have had council as well as some by-elections. Not very important. I mean, they're not really news. However, these elections have brought results that talk explicitly as well as implicitly about the first part of what I want to address. What we have seen is an almost landslide victory of the far-right Reform Party. Now, this is a party that openly expresses views that when I was a younger man and when I was at university, I studied that it was only the fascists of Europe in the last century that spoke in such a tone, in such a language. That it was Europe that went to war and sacrificed tens of millions of its youngest and finest. We are told to fight fascism, to fight the fascists, to fight the racists, to fight the xenophobes. That is at least what we were told. Yet, we find today how those who adopt the very same narrative, the very same discourse, the very same politics, the very same ideology, the very same isolationism, are now, bit by bit, finding themselves creeping back into the corridors of power. All of a sudden, we have claimedly the most powerful country in the world ruled by a convicted felon. You know, when Trump first assumed the White House, early in January, or mid-January, and one of the first activities of his was to receive Benjamin Netanyahu, and if you recall, his ultimatum given to the Palestinians, hand over the hostages or you will face hell. You remember that? And I couldn't escape when seeing that obscene theatre that, had it not been real, I would have imagined it was some sort of concoction of Hollywood. I couldn't escape thinking, here we have two convicted criminals. One convicted of the most grotesque, petty, vile crimes in his own country by his own courts, and another war criminal seen by the highest courts in the entire world as someone who deserves to be arrested upon sight. coming together to design and concoct and to plan and plot on committing one of the most grotesque crimes known to humanity. And that is the total annihilation of an entire nation. Openly, not behind closed doors, not in secret hallways, not something that we read on 50 years on when we discover what was going on, but in front of us, talking to us, appearing in the best of suits, and yet telling the world, these two criminals telling the world, we are about to commit this crime and you can do nothing about it. Once again, we, my brothers and sisters, the people of the world, are the true victims of what is happening. The West, as we have known it for the past 60, 70 years, the West that, as we are told, the bastion of democracy, the last front of human rights, freedoms galore, freedoms of speech, freedoms of congregation, freedoms of expression. The West, which brought to the world the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The West that brought about the pinnacle of humanity as we read in books that called The End of History. When Francis Fukuyama wrote his famous thesis in the 90s, he proposed that liberal democracy in its Western format was the best that humanity could ever achieve. Khalas, we're at the end of the road. We've reached that prize that all of humanity was seeking, was pursuing. We are the best of what we can ever imagine. That West is now not only crumbling at the seams, that West is now racing towards breaking down, dismantling, destructing the very institutions that made it what it was. The fact that the ICJ and the ICC, they issue arrest warrants against Netanyahu, yet the very same West not only refutes and refuses those orders, but actively defies them. Actively defies them. And now, going full steam ahead in order to break down, to bring down the ICC and the ICJ. In fact, those courts, those judges are now seen as persons, persona non grata in the United States. People whom the United States itself now sees as people who deserve to be locked up themselves. And someone said, if you recall, the ICJ has overstepped the mark. We set it up not so that it could prosecute us. It was supposed to prosecute the others, the blacks and the browns, the yellows, not us. They said it openly. Because, and this is what is devastating, my dear brothers and sisters, it seems to them, the world, all of us, collectively, billions of people, do not matter. So it's fine telling them how they feel, what they think, what they plan on doing. It's fine. There is no accountability anymore. This West is now at a point where we must declare that it is no longer. It is no longer what it claimed to be. It is no longer what it used to be at certain points of history. This West is now a despicable, repugnant version of itself. This West, despite the industries, despite the innovations, despite the weapons, the fleets around the world, despite the technologies, despite all of this, this West is eating itself, it's consuming itself. And whilst this is happening, it's lashing out and it's showing its most grotesque, ugly face to the world today. Just like a wounded animal that has no choice but to lash out in its final hours. That is what we find the West today. And of course, I'm talking about a huge swathe of the world today, and within that swathe there are variances. Of course, absolutely. But generally speaking, that thing that we used to call the West is no more. So now, the turning against peaceful demonstrators. Why is the United States so afraid of unarmed students in their early 20s carrying the Palestinian flag? What is so scary? What is so frightful? What is so terrifying to this mighty thing called the United States that it no longer can withstand to hear an objective voice? What has gone wrong? Why is it that various countries, including my own, are now moving quickly to facilitate laws to revoke people's residences, probably even to withdraw their citizenships, to close them down, to shut down what they have to say? Why are they so scared? It's not like there's an invading army on the borders. It's not like anyone, and I mean anyone, is threatening violence. Why are they so scared? Why is BDS so scared? Why is it that there are numerous states in the United States that have imposed laws where no one can find a job without signing onto conditions that they will never partake in any BDS movement? Why is that? What's the problem? This West is a frail, weak, wounded entity that is now lashing out, defying everything it claimed and claims to stand for. And now it is perpetuating, allowing one of the most grotesque, enormous crimes to happen openly in front of everyone's eyes. Not even in dark rooms or in secret. So the very first thing we need to talk about when talking about Palestine is us, is the entire world. And what our response is when a crime is committed. Crimes are committed. But it's the reaction to those crimes, it's the evaluation of that crime that decides and passes verdict on who we are. In the hadith, the saying of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he says, and I'll read in Arabic, or say in Arabic, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. A quick translation is, whoever sees something bad happening, something evil taking place, then try to stop it. Physically, try to stop it. And if there is simply no way that you can that at least condemn it openly, publicly. State that you are against it. And if for some reason you cannot, then at least feel shame, feel repulsion inside, and that is the lowest that you can go. There is nothing beneath you inside denouncing this, saying what a grotesque, ugly thing to happen. See, in this hadith, the Prophet didn't talk about the crime that was being committed. He talked about me, he talked about you, he talked about us, and our reaction to that crime. And that's what we miss. That's what we forget and omit when we understand exactly what our role is as human beings. And this brings me back, my dear brothers and sisters, to the message of hope that our dear chair tried to send. And I absolutely concur with him. I think that we are in a place where hope must come first. In fact, even in my bleak assessment of where the West stands, there is hope, because I think we mostly agree that the past 2 to 3 centuries of Western domination haven't been a bed of roses. They haven't been to the ultimate joy and happiness of the world. They haven't been necessarily to the prosperity of nations within their own land, within their own borders. So maybe it is about time that that entity built upon those foundations, built using the very same tools that were stolen from your country and from mine, maybe it's time that that entity faced its comeuppance. Maybe. So in that, even with that bleak assessment, there is hope. And maybe something else better will come. Maybe people will learn. Maybe people will see and observe and understand that having all the weaponry in the world, having all the power in the world, having all the gold in the world, the financial capital in the world, all the authority that one can ever fathom, does not mean that you are invincible. And what we're seeing today is that crumbling of that giant monolith, that God of many in our midst. But let's talk now about us in real terms. About us here, about us around the world. What we have seen, and that very few are talking about, probably fitting the headline beyond the headlines. The reaction to Palestine. The reaction to Leicester. What we have seen, my dear brothers and sisters, is truly remarkable. Probably even historic, probably even unprecedented. As people have very generously, gracefully introduced me, I've been an activist now for decades. And I've been on too many demonstrations to recall how many. And I've attended gatherings and the like more than I care to count. But what is happening now is something else. And it's something else on many levels. It's something else in terms of size. It's something else in terms of reach. And it's something else in terms of narrative. In terms of size, the fact that in my country, but also in scores of countries around the world, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, sometimes even more, continue to come out in support of the people of Gaza, despite the prices that are often paid. Now this is important. This is a game changer. I have to say that when we organized and I chaired the 2 Million March in February 2003 in London, we weren't afraid of anyone being arrested for no reason. But now, being in one of those demonstrations for Palestine can cost someone their job. And we've seen it happen hundreds of times. Going on one of those demonstrations could cost someone their university place. In fact, their career. Could cost someone their freedom, could cost someone their residence permit, could cost someone their passport and their citizenship. And despite that, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands come out every single time. In terms of reach, and this is such a remarkable sight that I can't begin to find the words to describe to you. The diversity is immense. Whether it be in colour, whether it be in language, whether it be in accent, whether it be in age, whether it be in profession, whether it be in terms of social class, or wealth, or faith, or dogma, or creed, or orientation, or political disposition. The variety is immense. And this is why it has been impossible for governments around the world, including mine, to designate these demonstrations in one way or another. They called us hate marches. Yet, hating who? We have everyone here. Everyone is here. So who exactly are we hating here? They called us anti-Semitic and anti-Jew. And it was the element of anti-Zionist Jews who stood forth and said, no, that's wrong. We are here. When they accused the marchers of intimidating the Jewish population, it was the Jews who stood at the very front and said, we're here and we feel as safe as we would feel anywhere. We do not fall within a particular box. We can't be boxed, we can't be classed, because, my dear brothers and sisters, we are real and we are for humanity. And this is why these demonstrations have been such a game changer. In terms of variety, Dr. Masri said, he suggested things that fit within the cultural landscape of Malaysia, and so you should. The ingenuity of the young in finding ways and means to convey the story of Gaza, to put out exactly what our positions as human beings are, to describe and analyze away from TV studios or news reports. Social media has been an explosion of young ingenuity of how to present, how to tell the story, how to narrate, how to read the stories of Hind Rajab and of countless others in Gaza. This movement has shocked the entire world, and that's why they're attempting to criminalize us. They're attempting to accuse us of being criminals, haters, intimidators, racist, anti-Semites. That's what they're accusing us of. They can't just let that protest just pass. You know, those demonstrations in London, they are advertised way before they happen. Our route is decided way before it happens. The speakers are well known way before. Nothing is sudden. Nothing is a surprise. The question is, why don't they just let it pass? It'll start at 12, finish at 4, done. Everyone goes back home. What are they afraid of? They are afraid of us. My brothers and sisters, they are afraid of us. With all their might, with all their technology, with all their facial recognition cameras, with all their heavily armed police forces, they are afraid of us. There is so much that we can do. And what we have been doing for the past 18 months, inspired by our brothers and sisters in Gaza, driven by our brothers and sisters in Gaza, motivated by our brothers and sisters in Gaza, what we have been doing has been a game changer. It's what Netanyahu and his cabinet are worried about more than anything else. These young people that I meet, the hundreds, the thousands, the tens of thousands that I meet every single week, the ones I see across America, across Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, those young people are the leaders of these countries in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And what they're saying is remarkable. And this brings me to the third level in which these demonstrations are unprecedented. And that is the narrative. What they are suggesting is incredible. My dear brothers and sisters, I assure you, less than 2 years ago, before October 2023, those who were activists in the field of pro-Palestinian solidarity movements will tell you, especially those in the West. Our main concern, how do we reflect the fact that Palestine is occupied? The mere suggestion that, by the way, Palestine is under occupation. This was something you needed to spend time trying to, tell people, convince them that the Palestinians are under occupation. And then, when they are convinced of this, trying to convince them they weren't occupied only in 1967, but that it goes back to 1948. And then we use jargon that most people would not know anything about, such as the Nakba. All of a sudden, we have young activists in Canada, in America, in Latin America, across Europe, in their droves, talking about Palestine from the river to the sea, talking about the crimes committed by Zionism, not the Jews, by Zionists, by those who believe absolutely that it is within their rights, as they claim their God-given rights, despite most of them being atheists who do not believe in a God. Their God-given rights to reclaim a land and to rid it of its inhabitants in whatever way it comes. Those young activists are now talking to a level which I have to say I couldn't ever imagine within the next 10, 20, 30 years we'd be able to propose. Now, the fact of the river to the sea, that was something that if you were to ever utter, people would immediately accuse you of wanting to commit a genocide or a massacre or a Holocaust against the Jewish people of Israel. Now it's being spoken of, and despite the fact that government after government indicates or implies that whoever says this is racist, is genocidal, is someone intent on murderous plans, yet people say it more and more loudly. when the Palestinian flag was supposed to be, or claimed to be, a signal of racism and of hate, more and more people adored the flag. The fashion icon in London, and I haven't managed to go across Europe, but I assure you, in many other places in Europe as well as in America, the fashion icon today is the coiffure. Wherever you go, whether it be in terms of the scarf, the hijab, the phone case, the bracelet, the necklace, the t-shirt, it is everywhere, wherever you look. And the fact that this has come to the birthplace of the Zionist project is in itself remarkable. My dear brothers and sisters, we are at a crucial moment. And this crucial moment sees a perfect storm brewing. You know the term perfect storm. It's when everything comes together. Everything comes to play, heading in the same direction. That's the definition of the perfect storm. Today, we are approaching that moment when there is a perfect storm. We're seeing a wounded criminal lashing out like they don't care. They don't even care. They're not even trying to deny it. What they're committing in Gaza is beyond it. It's gone. I think that we've used all the adjectives that are available in the English vocabulary. They've gone beyond that. What they're doing now is not only criminal, it's beastly. How do you describe what they're doing? How do you classify it? You want something from international law? There is none. Don't look into international law and call them violations or contraventions. We've gone beyond that. We've gone beyond them being classified as crimes. We are now at a stage where we have sick, mentally unstable people who are committing undescribable crimes against a defenseless nation. So we have that, a wounded entity that knows it's on its knees, that knows it is breathing its last gasps of air, and therefore lashing out like it doesn't care, backed by a West that is crumbling, decaying, falling apart, returning full cycle against its very founding bricks, its very institutions that it used to flag as being the lights of its civilization, turning against those very institutions, those very building stones of its current format, with a global movement, the size of which, the reach of which, the depth of which, the rhetoric and discourse of which we have never seen. All of this coming together. And with the likes of Trump speeding things up by declaring war after war, one the like of the trade war, the other an actual war, threatening this, threatening that. The fact that we have, as the saying goes, the most powerful man in the world, just wishing to just take another country. Just take it. Calling a landscape something else just because he doesn't like the name. And you know what? You know what the fascinating thing is? That the world plays and dances to the tune. It's not like someone is saying, this man is crazy. This man is absurd. This man is dangerous. No, no one is saying they're all standing in line, no, 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 we need to do something about this. So they're acting all serious as though the claim was serious, as though Canada becoming the 51st first state of America is something which is reasonable. So the world is dealing with it as though it's a reasonable proposition. So let's deal with it as though it is. In that infamous press conference between Trump and Zelensky, do you recall how many times Trump repeated to Zelensky, asking him, you don't have any cards. You don't have any cards. What Trump decided, stated, announced to the world with that is that truth doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. It doesn't matter if you're a victim or an oppressor. If you have cards, you can talk. If you don't have cards, you can't talk. That's what the West is becoming. That's what civilization now looks like. You have power, you have wealth, and you can sit at the table. You can share your thoughts. You don't, sit quietly, and whatever happens to you, you should be grateful. This is the world that they want. What we are seeing, did you see the interview he did on American TV last night? When he proposed that someone whom he had illegally deported, he said that on his knuckles, I don't know whether you saw it, it's a silly thing, but it shows you where we are heading. He said that on his knuckles, he had tattooed something signifying that he was part of a major gang. Now that picture is a Photoshop. It's not true. Everyone has recognized it's a Photoshop. So the interviewer was trying to tell the president, by the way, it's not real. He was saying, yes, it is. And the interviewer was trying to save face, the president's face. And, okay, let's talk about it. He said, no, 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 let's go back. It was there. It was written there. It's not true. It's a Photoshop. No, 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 let's go. We are in a world where truth doesn't matter anymore. Where right and wrong can be played with. Where who's the victim and who's the oppressor, you can decide. It's a stage, it's theatre, it doesn't matter. Who's the goodie, who's the bad guy? Khalas, done. Whoever's powerful can decide. Approaching that world comes our standing, our responsibilities, our commitment, our devotion, and our vision for the future. My dear brothers and sisters, in the final couple of minutes, my message to you, in fact, my message to myself, and the message that I wish to take wherever I go, is that we together here hold the reins of power. I started off by saying that we are the victims of what has taken place in Gaza. But I end by saying that despite that, we have the reins of power. Because we have the reins of truth. And we must think that the first sign of defeat, my dear brothers, is when we are mentally defeated. That's the first step in defeating a people. To defeat us mentally, thinking that we cannot do this. We cannot face these armies. We cannot face these big media entities. We cannot face these mega-rich multi-billionaires. We cannot face that. Is a sign that we have condemned ourselves to defeat. We need to reclaim our positions as the bearers of truth and therefore the bearers of power. We must understand that everything we say, everything we do counts. We must understand that the transformation of the world and changing it into something better they, whoever they may be, corporations, politicians, megalomaniacs, whoever they may be, they've had their go. And they've brought the entire world down to the extent that now their biggest concern is how to escape the world that they have destructed and find a place in space. That's what they're doing right now. They're trying to run away because they burnt the world. Khalas, they left nothing else. There's nothing there more for them to do. It is a pass, my dear brothers and sisters, to reclaim humanity. Palestine, Gaza, has waken us up, has awoken the world. And now, it's not just Muslims, it's not just Arabs, it's not just Westerners, it's not just, it's everyone. Everyone is part of this pursuit. Everyone is now part of this path, this endeavor, this objective, this dream. Everyone here, everyone outside, we must continue this path. And despite the fact that we will continue to see ourselves as falling short, and that is right. And that is the way of true, sincere, devoted, diligent individuals. Whatever you do, you find yourself you can do more. That's a good sign. But we must always try and strive to do better. Thank you very much for listening attentively. I appreciate you having me be so proud. Assalamu alaikum.
Very powerful voice. I think give us a lot of things to reflect on and think. I think one of the key point message has been repeated in his speech is that Gaza or Palestine, it is not a thought that 10,000 miles away from us. But we are here, everybody is affected. We are also victims of the situations. Therefore, we are also must be part of the resistance, part of the struggle. The very minimum, besides putting aside, I mean, we can go through a lot of social analysis like why we are facing the same domination, same oppression in economy, in politics, etc. But most importantly is that we are living to see the truth, and what this oppression did to us is to take away our courage to speak for the truth. This is the essence of what Dr. Anas said. If we do not dare to stand up to fight for the truth, then we are allowing ourselves to be a victim and allowing ourselves to be living in lies. I think this is, that's why his speech is not just an analysis, it's not just giving us update about what's going on, but his speech is a call for action. So with that, I want to open up for questions. But before that, because I talked about action, I want to take this opportunity to advertise. On the 16th of May is the historical anniversary of Nakba. 77 years after the Palestinians are suffering. So on the 16th we are going to have a demonstration. So hopefully pass the words around, come to join us. We'll march from Tabung Haji to the UK High Commission, then to the US High Commission, to the US embassies, say your name and then be concise with your questions.
I'm Sharwan from Abim. Just two questions. First, in the West currently there is, among Muslims especially, there is political awakening. Last year with the election, President Biden, UK, even currently is Australia. There is a lot of expectation, especially for Muslims in the West, to do something more, not just becoming a party, just observer, but participate in the political realities in the West. What is your opinion about the West, the Muslim in the West, on the Muslim majority countries? What should we do, especially? Is it only education, democracy, bring Israel to ICJ, or maybe they expect military, not just aid, but military escalation or something like that? That's the first question. The second is that there is still lot of talk about the role of tech companies in helping the development in Gaza, especially about using AI, using all this cloud data to basically kill people in Palestine, and also even arresting activists in the West. And we don't know what they do for us in Malaysia. I'm sure they have something. So that's why I think we should, especially in Malaysia, we have a lot of talk about AI, but we should also integrate it with the issue using AI to fight for Palestine. Because we know that Israel invests a lot in technology, especially in digital technology. That's my question.
Okay, I think the question is what do the Muslim majority country hold, and also the role of technology. Okay, next.
Maybe we move to the brother with the microphone first at the back, while we get the microphone to our sister here.
Can we use one single mic here, please? Yeah, mic here.
Okay, and then we
How do you propose that we reclaim our ability to make a difference in this situation?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, we are very thankful for your coordinating us, sharing with us your feelings about the situation in Gaza. If you may I speak in Arabic so that you can understand what is the كما تفضل حضرتكم الأعضاء في غزة من هذه المسؤولية، أو ليست الضحايا فقط أهل غزة، بل نحن جميع الضحايا من هذه الحرب. فبناء على ذلك سؤالي، نحن نرى الأوضاع العالمية الآن، هناك مجموعة تسمى بريكس، وهناك مجموعة تسمى الغرب الطابع لأمريكا. سؤالي، هل بإمكان أن نستغل هذا الوضع تقويدا لقوله تعالى وجعلنا بعضهم لبعض فتنة أتصبرون؟ وقد سمعنا أن الخليفة أو الخليفة الثاني سلطان بن حامد الثاني من حلق العالمية الأولى، فكان فكرته أن يجعل بين المتحاربين وينسحب المسلمون من هذا ليكون الفرصة لهم. وهل باستطاعتنا نحن، خاصة أنت جزاك الله خيرا أحد المؤثرين في الأوضاع في أوروبا وفي بريطانيا الخاصة، هل لنا بل هناك إمكانية أن نستغل هذا الأوضاع في غزة ليكون سببا لإنقاذ المسلمين ونجعل الإلحاد بين هؤلاء المتحاربين
فنستمر وفنؤثر على هذه المجموعة المساومات ونستمر هذه الأوضاع بينهما ليكون الفرصة لنا إن شاء الله. هذا هو السؤال.
Can you reply him, please?
My name is Ansari Abdul Malik from the Philippines.
All right, we'll go to respond first. Just a reminder, please stay with questions and not repeat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the questions. And to answer generally, because I think that there is a common theme here about what it is that we can do. And the question posed by our dear brother Ansari is that in light of global dynamics, transforming and probably even shifting dynamics, and in light of what's happening in Gaza, how would it be possible to utilize and to exploit Gaza in order to create that kind of overwhelming change, bringing people together, and creating that kind of future that we will aspire to? And all of these questions, to be honest, they touch on something which is essential, and that is, where do we stand in regards to this? And that fills me with hope. The fact that we are not seeing, as you said, we are not seeing Gaza as being thousands of miles away, but we are experiencing Gaza. We are feeling Gaza. And therefore we are in a position to act, and we're asking questions, how can we act best in order to support Gaza, to lift the misery from upon Gaza? And that is why I am extremely hopeful. Because it's the same when I travel to Australia, it's the same when I travel to Japan, when I travel, it's the same. So, in a way, Gaza has become, and I say this not emotively or not in an exaggerating manner, but I say this because I have seen this. Gaza has become a global icon for freedom, a global icon for humanity. And this is why Gaza is so troubling to even those who are overwhelming us. This is why it has become such a curse to those who are perpetuating and complicit in the committing this crime that we are seeing. Essentially, my dear brothers and sisters, and I always start with this, the first is that we need to recognize where our position is. Let me give you an example. Let me just talk a little bit generally and try to explain to you what I mean. When in my lectures, when I teach political sciences, one of the very first elements of political science is trying to understand what the relation is between a citizen and their ruler. Okay? Their representative, their president, their prime minister, whoever. When you start to understand this, and this might seem like a very obvious issue, but this is a big problem in terms of perception and comprehension. What is the relationship between you and those who govern, who sit in the presidential palace? Once you understand that you are in charge, you are the boss, you have employed them to serve you, to look after your affairs, and therefore they are accountable to you, then democracy works. If that comprehension and that understanding is either skewed or absent, such as, unfortunately, the vast majority of Arab particularly, but also Muslim nations, you simply cannot, because all of a sudden you've surrendered all the power that you have to whoever doesn't deserve it. Once again, in terms of what's happening, we need to understand that we hold on to the realms of power. We are the most powerful element here. That is why they're trying to silence us. That is why your voice and mine are so hurtful to the Zionists and to those who are backing Israel and doing what it's doing. That's why when you see that in university halls when students or academic staff stand up and oppose someone who is speaking, the Israeli ambassador or the Israeli government delegates or the like, that all of a sudden they're surrounded by heavily armed security forces. They don't have any arms. They've been checked for guns. They're not going to shoot anyone. They're not going to hurt anyone or harm anyone. But their words are so powerful. And right now, that power can actually increase the speed and the momentum of the decay and the crumbling of this whole moment. So, my dear brother here asked something specific about, for instance, the tech industries. The question regarding nations. The question regarding Muslim nations, Muslim majority nations. We have, for generations now, been rid, whether it be during colonial times, or the nation states that have emerged over the course of the past 50 to 100 years. We have been systematically taught that we have no power. We need now to re-educate ourselves, re-educate our young. And by the way, the younger generations, capture them before we lose them. Get to them before we lose them. Before we lose them to oppression. Before we lose them to the limitations of freedom of speech. Catch them before they become indoctrinated, that they can't really think freely. Catch them before the media teaches them that they are worthless unless they wear certain makeup, or they dress according to certain fashions, or they appear in certain clips of movies for 5 seconds. Catch them before we lose them. Catch them at their element. They have been proven all over the world to be a brilliant generation of young people who speak freely, who speak loudly. I have to say that sometimes, when I sort of stray and reach out for that drink from the fridge of the supermarket, when I'm with my little girls, they're the ones who tell me off. I'm afraid of them more than I'm afraid of anyone else. I'm afraid of them. Those young have the potential to be the real game changers, but we need to look after them, to capture them before we lose them. The issue of the Muslim majority countries, my dear brother, what can I tell you? For generations we've been subservient. And now we need to rise. We need to reclaim our position, our rightful place as bosses, as societies that should be in charge of their own affairs and their own futures. And this is done by many, many means. Whether it be by articles, whether it be by statements, whether it be by demonstrations, whether it be by lobbying, whether it be. And also, we need to understand that for far too long, we've been subservient to certain templates, certain policies, regulations, systems. We call them systems. And any kind of change that is sometimes allowed, it's all within those same templates. We need to change the templates. We need to throw them out and create new templates. The world is wrong. The world is built wrong. And that's why change is so difficult, because we're always trying to change within the same templates. We need to now think outside, not only outside the box, we need to throw away the box. We need to dispose the box. That's when we start to think in a different way, to understand that the playing fields are so more vast than we are ever told, and that's when we start to create the kind of changes we want. In regards with tech companies, again, something that we have lost control of systematically, gradually, but surely. And the fact that now, most tech countries, most security countries, their headquarters is in Tel Aviv. That is problematic to the extreme, I have to say. In most airports around the world, the security who check our bags and check what we're carrying are from countries, the bases of which are in Tel Aviv. The security apps that spy on us on your phones, they're mostly developed in Tel Aviv. This can't carry on. Our youngsters are brilliant. They have brilliant minds, they have brilliant potentials. We must cultivate, we must harness those minds, those potentials, to create totally different bases of how to create our security. The thing is, many years ago, about 7-8 years ago, I met with a group of young, thriving nerds, essentially. They were nerds. Let's call them what they were. Nerds. But they were brilliant. And I, gave them some advice, and other people gave them some advice, and there was so much hope. But unfortunately, within a matter of months, maybe 16, 17 months, and their startup was showing some prominence, brilliant, and all of a sudden they were offered hundreds of millions of dollars. And their situation, they just couldn't turn it down. So they had to sell out. They had to sell their startup, and now it's part of a huge project that is actually oppressing they themselves, the very people who created that particular software. We need to change the dynamics of how we do things. The fact that we live in a world today where money means everything is wrong. Humanity started to go wrong once. It started to believe that your expertise, your wisdom, your knowledge, your inner potential, your drive, your passion, your artistic taste means nothing. It's only what you have and how much you have in your pockets. That's when humanity started to lose its way. So today, we measure people by how much they make a week or a month or a year. That's when we have gone wrong. Again, we need to readdress the whole system of how we value our own. Why is it that in my own country, in Iran, the university professors of brilliant minds die starving, die homeless, die penniless, scrape for a living? If one of them is lucky enough to be at an age where they can drive a taxi around, they would do so. Whilst at the same time, frivolous, tasteless, meaningless, worthless content on social media gets hundreds of thousands, millions of likes and earns whoever does them money that really they have no idea how to use, how to utilize, how to cultivate. Things are wrong with the world that we are living in today. We need to readdress the balance of virtually everything so that then we can be truly free. We can be truly free. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I always say, a starting point is our declaration of Shahada. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah is the essential, quintessential declaration and revolution against slavery of all forms of all manners. To declare that you are free of fear, you are free of intimidation, you are free of yearning for that end of month payslip. You are free of that fear that if you were to say the right word or the wrong word that you might be fired, you might be kicked out of where you're living. The fear of everything that is shackling humanity today, and the subservience to our Creator alone. That in itself is something we need to once again go back and readdress, understand. And we need to assist in humans' endeavor to free themselves. Once we do that, my sister, then we will be able, believe you me, Gaza is the motivation. Gaza is the inspiration. Gaza is where we're focused now and getting all our ideas. But Gaza is not either the first or, I dare say, the last of crimes against humanity to be committed. How is it that we utilize and capitalize on these events in order to grow and to be free That is the question that we need to discuss.
Round. So, any hands? There. First. Two. Anyone else? Okay, then go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahmad Hussain Ali. Retired from now I would like to thank Brother Anas. I've known you for a very long time, but you do not know me. I know your life, your whole life. It's a life of struggle. People are in good moments, some of us. So may God bless you, and thank you very much. Now, your speech, brother. Your speech makes me feel motivated and encouraged. Encouraged me to say a few words. Now, I'm not going to give a lecture, but I'm going to ask a few questions. Maybe not a few, but quite several questions. But you don't need to answer all, because we'll need a one-day conference to answer them all. Now, you mentioned about the evil of the Zionists and the governments that they inspire or influence. The United States government, English, the UK, London, Bali, and everywhere. But, brother, what's new? Who amongst us here, and please don't answer, who amongst us here are not already aware of the evilness of this government? For so many decades, since we were colonized and then we became independent and so on, we knew these people. So that's why I was asking, what's new? We know it. But the question is, what's new? And of course, you don't have to answer. The second question is, yeah, they are doing all sorts of bad things and so on. So my question is, so what? Is it not their job? The job of shaitan, humans or demons, that's their job. To create mischief wherever they are. So, there's no need to talk about the evilness and so on. We know. What we should be talking about is ourselves. What are we doing? What have we been doing? What are we doing? And what are we going to do? Is it conferences and more conferences and more conferences? Brother and ladies and gentlemen, we have done 4 Ds. The first D is demonstrations. Over the past decades, we have done lots and lots of demonstrations in support of the Palestinians everywhere, in every Muslim country. And in recent decades, in the Western countries as well. $70. We together from all Muslim countries and some non-Muslim countries as well. We have donated dollars, we have donated and dollars only. We have donated lots of dollars to help rebuild their lives, to help rebuild the mosques, the schools, kindergartens, hospitals, and everything that was razed to the ground and owned by the Israelis. The third D. Sorry, I'm 67, so I need to refer to my notes. Dissemination. Now each time a news about the Palestinian struggle, about the bombardment of by the Israelis, every time there's a gory picture or video about our brothers in Palestine, the babies, men, women and children being murdered, being massacred, being dismembered. Sometimes we don't even look at them before we forward to others. We are doing a good job in dissemination. The fourth D is door. We make a lot of doors, and we should continue to do so. We do our full Nazila every day, 5 times a day, and we should continue. But after doing all the 4 Ds, why are we still the same? After 77 years, nothing much has changed. The only change is that the Palestinians have become worse. The state of the Palestinians have become worse. And the state of us have become worse. Because today we are talking about understanding the realities of Palestine. After 7 years, we are talking about understanding the realities of Palestine. If after 77 years we do not understand the realities of Palestine, we will never be able to understand in the next 77 years. We should stop pretending to be fighting for our brothers in Palestine. They also have given up on us. They would rather go to paradise straight away than listening to us do conferences and so on.
Can we quickly
brother.
question?
Okay. So, what I'm saying is, we have done all the 4 Ds. Can we do a 5th D? There's one more D that we haven't done, and we need to do that. If you need, because we don't have time, I don't have time to explain, please contact me. You know where to get my number if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Yeah. You can use the mic. Yeah, there's a mic. Yeah. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Nazrul Hussain from Nepal. Thank you for your very energetic, motivational speech on the base of facts. But I have some questions. Why we go to UN and UN related human rights, women rights, children rights, other organizations, and European Union and the USA to seek help? Why we go to raise our voice from them, and why we hope from them they will establish or help us and work for the peace for in Gaza or any part of any Muslims. We know that Quran says, "Lan tarda ankal Yahud wa lan tarda ankal Yahud wa lan Nasara hatta tattabi'a millatahum." It is not fact, and history is also says that never Yahud and Nasara was with the Muslims or with the justice. And this situation, we are suffering from that. Also says that it is not possible. But after all, brother says 16 May we are going to organize big rallies, and we will give some things to the UN embassy, UN and American embassy and others. Why not? We understand the facts. They cannot help us, but they establish all this organization to impose their agendas. So first thing, this why. Next thing, our Muslim countries are why not raising this voice? What is the problem with the Muslim country? Why we are not talking about the Muslim leaders who are leading the Muslim country? Why? What is the facts? And especially the Gulf countries looks enemy of the cause of Gaza and Palestine and Masjid Aqsa. What is the root cause of that? Why we not find out that and raise that on the front the Ummah? And why not we people ask our government, ask those peoples who are leading the Muslim Ummah in countries, they will stand for the justice, they stand for the this noble cause. Thank you.
Take one more question, then you can. Anyone? This is the last question. Yeah, okay. I'll give it also to you.
Hello. No question from lady, so I'll give it to her.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anas. We just met recently when you came. And from one of your inspiration, I decided to become the principal of a refugee school. So Alhamdulillah. And since then, I've observed many little Gazas around Malaysia itself. So my question is, I think two questions. One is, can you help me to educate Malaysians themselves that we have little mini Gazas around us coming from all the refugees around the world, that unless, as you mentioned, unless we stand up against being a victim, we end up become the perpetrator themselves. And I've heard this sometimes, like, why do we have to help these refugees? These are all Muslim Malaysians. So help me to educate them, teach me, I need some guidance to educate our own Muslims, our own Malaysians, that the they're not simply refugees. Even I find it hard to call the students refugees. I do not want them to feel even more victimized by the way we label them. Second, I'm a teacher, I'm a principal, I teach them the very education system that comes from the British, the Cambridge, right? I ask myself that after, in the light of Gaza, what am I teaching? To be obedient to the rules of the people that create these situations themselves. Yes, I teach them that I myself realize that I'm illiterate when it comes to political science, I'm illiterate when it comes to international law. And I'm teaching, regurgitating what I have been taught years and years to these people that need so much more. So help me, or connect me to people that can help me create and design a curriculum that helps, that will be able to help the most marginalized people in society. That's all. Assalamu alaikum.
I think, yeah, for the interest of time, we go straight to...
I'll be very brief, because I think, firstly, our dear Ustad, there I'd be very interested in knowing what the D that is missing, that we need to do, and maybe we can have this discussion, inshallah, later. But thank you for what you said. Also, in regards with our dear brother here, you know, when I talk about Zionism, something that we need to actually join the fight to dismantle. Zionism is one of the most hate-filled ideologies in our midst. And unfortunately, it has very powerful backers. And anyone who attacks Zionism is immediately seen as though they are attacking every single Jew, which is absolutely false. And unfortunately, and I always mention this, brother, unfortunately, amongst the most powerful Zionists in the world today are Muslims. They call Muhammad, Ali, Ismail, Aisha, Zainab, believe you me. So, we need to understand the reality of where we stand today. And in regards with, you know, you speak of the Gulf countries, for instance. By the way, we don't have time, but I wish, inshallah, maybe on this visit, in the next visit, we speak about the Arab world, because I think it's important that we understand why is it that countries that seem to be powerful, a few kilometers away, not hundreds of kilometers, a few kilometers away from where people are being massacred in Gaza, they're incapable of doing it. Why? How does this make sense? Why is it that you have a country the size of Egypt, one of the biggest Arab countries, closing down the Rafah border so that no Gaza can leave? Why? There is a reason for this. Why is it that the Gulf countries are not only silent, but actually supporting the Israelis in committing the crime they are committing? There is a reason. Those countries, the way they were established, they were founded wrong. Their very birth was abnormal. Until this very day, we as people, the world, suffers as a result of that abnormal birth of the Arab world. Every single one of those Arab countries. They are born with complexes that they can't overcome. The way in which these countries were divided with a ruler and a pen, and then handed over to unworthy people with the guarantee that they would be protected, but in return, they should be silent when a state like Israel is founded. There is an agreement here. There is a contract. It's a matter of being or not being. It's not, wallahi, our hearts or our minds or our tears. No. This is the contract. This is the agreement. We let you and your children and your grandchildren to the 10th degree be rulers, in control of your resources, in control of your riches, in control of your people, with lavish lifestyles, so that you remain quiet when we tell you to be quiet, and you become complicit when you're asked to be complicit. This is an agreement. This is a, it's not something that we should be surprised about, but maybe that's for another day. And finally, my guests. First of all, I learn from you. I have nothing to teach you. MashaAllah, starting this initiative. By the way, you know, Wallahi, this is something that moves me. Really, and touches my heart. Because we omit to remember. We omit to remember that our Prophet was a refugee. Our Prophet was a refugee. Migrating is something sacred. Migrating to find freedom, to be free of oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا. Asking those who were oppressed and lived oppressed, wasn't the land that I created, wasn't it expansive? Why did you not migrate? This is in our Quran we read. Our Prophet was a muhajir, was a refugee, was a migrant. So the way that we look to migrants, rather than holding them in the highest place, in high esteem, we denigrate them. It boggles the mind. I don't understand someone who has left their home, left their family, left their culture, left their comfort zone in order to provide for themselves and their loved ones. They are on the sacred mission. This adventure is from the divine. So we need to change our perspective in how, and by the way, even addressing young migrants, we should tell them this, that they are honorable, that they and their parents have carried out something that is of the Prophet Muhammad, of the divine. This is something which is important, and that hopefully changes our perspective, and hopefully changes the dynamics in which we deal with an issue that has been politicized, that has been used and exploited by regimes that are scared. They're scared of the weakest. The UK, you'd think that the UK was under nuclear attack, not approached by people on plastic rubber boats that are more likely to drown before they reach the shores, penniless, homeless, poor people. They are seen as the biggest threat to Britain and to Europe right now. It's absolutely obscene.
Thank you. It's going to be my very enormous task for me trying to summarize. But I think this session is more of a sharing of the spirits of solidarity. If I can conclude from the speech, it is not, we are not coming here climbing the high mountains to look for guru for answer, but we are here to share the spirits of solidarity. To conclude also, Gaza, Palestine is in all of us. It's not something far away. And I will also say that we have not done enough. I mean, as much as I like to hear the new secret weapon of the 5D, but I think the 4D, less than 1% of us have done it. We have not done the demonstrations. We have not seen 1 million people on the streets, not even 100,000 people on the streets. We have not, a lot of our friends here from AIDS Agency, we have not seen 1% of Malaysians donate 0.1% of our GDP to those humanitarian works. We have not done enough. So I think there's a lot of things to be done. But I'd like to add one issue that I was also being put here for. This is not a fight for the Muslim. And unfortunately, we can look into the history, whether it's in Vietnam, Timor-Leste, South Africa. If the Vietnamese hope that the Southeast Asia will liberate them, sorry, it didn't happen. It happened in the US campus. It happened in UK. It happened all over the world. If the Timorese hope for the Christian to liberate them, then they will not have the liberation today. So I think today, what we have to remember is, forget about the pipe dream of the unity of the world. I'm sorry, I don't want to be offensive, but I'm just saying that this is a struggle for all of us. Palestine has reminded us and unite us globally. Today, the young people in the West are fighting for their democratic rights. We never thought about that. We always think that Western countries could help us for democracy. No, they are fighting for democratic rights. The country in Middle East also have to fight for their democratic right, or else the regime that mentioned by Dr. Anas will not stand out in UN to speak for anything. They will not go to any international forum to show their true commitment to the Palestine. Even for here, we have not done enough for refugees. Refugees from Palestine, from anywhere of the world, we have not given them enough respect. We have to use our influence to remind our government to allow a more humanitarian treatment of refugees. We also have not done enough to correct this country perceptions that Palestinian issues is exclusively Muslim issues. If Muslims themselves, or people concerned about Palestine, cannot speak the truth because they don't understand it, and they repeat the same misunderstanding about this, then you will not be able to convert the non-Muslim to be on your side. Right? So, lastly also, please remember, Palestine is not just Muslim only. They were Christians, they were also a religion in Palestine. Just like us in Malaysia, if we were attacked, we don't expect just the Muslim to defend this country. And we don't expect just the Muslim country to support us, because this is a fight for humanity. And luckily, we are thankful, and unfortunately, the suffering of the Palestinians bring us to this stage that we will be united in humanities. And hopefully, their sacrifices are not in vain if we can bring about this awareness. So this is my way of putting it, whatever Dr. Anas said, in my own words, and hopefully put into the context of Malaysia. Thank you very much. One more round of applause to Dr. Anas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anas and Mr. Tian Chua. And you can please take a seat on the stage first for our next agenda. I would actually just like to say a few words. I would like to personally give my statement of gratefulness, and I want to echo something that actually Dr. Anas, when you were on the podcast with Ustazah Fatimah Baramatullah a few months ago, she said that it is important for intellectuals to come down to the ground and enlighten the rest of us. And I would say that someone of my generation, we need this sort of programs. Sometimes we don't know what's going on. So thank you very much to both Dr. Anas and Mr. Tian Chua. And with that, I would like to call upon Dr. Mazli once again to the stage to present a token of appreciation to our two esteemed speakers. And I would also like to call upon the President of Ikram Tuan Haji Badisha Shah and the Chairman of PACE, Prof. Dr. Awaluddin bin Muhammad Sharul, to accompany Dr. Mazli in doing so. Okay, a big round of applause once again. And sorry, please remain on stage. Please remain on stage. Now I would like to call upon, oh sorry, another bag, sorry. Okay, thank you very much. And now I would like to call upon NGO leaders from other NGOs as well to the stage for us to have a brief photo shoot. Leaders from Pertubuhan Ikram Malaysia, MyCare, Haluan, ABIM, WADA, BDS Malaysia, Secretariat Solidarity Palestine, Palestine Center of Excellence, and IAS. Please come to the stage for a brief